Well, as I promised, it's time now to have a little bit of fun, and it's nice to see that many of you have come back to the auditorium for this, our last session on the Friday afternoon. I know you've all heard of Jean Kitson. She's a multi-talented performer and writer. She's one of Australia's best-known and most popular comedians in theatre, movies, print, radio and television, not to mention symposiums around the country. She's appeared in many feature films, most recently opposite Delta Goodrem in the adaptation of Robin Klein's classic story, Hating Alison Ashley. Most of you would know her as a regular guest on the ABC's 702, Thank God It's Friday, and ABC TV's The Einstein Factor. I'm not going to say any more about Jean Kitson. I'll let her say it for herself. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Jean Kitson.
Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. Hello. Are you all right? Do you want to stand up and just shake? You can stand up and clap. Come on, stand up. Give me a clap. Come on. You've been sitting here since... Woo! All right, let's have a drink. It's a really great pleasure to be the speaker for your final session at the end of a very grueling day of conferencing. Now, the tourism industry is quite literally the shopfront of civilization. It thrives in times of success, of prosperity, of optimism, of love of life and all its wonderful opportunities, times of uplifting and reckless discretionary spending. And may I say, after the national stress of the 2020 summit, of the subprime stampede, the looming world recession, after global warming, whale-bothering terrorism, the Australian dollar on steroids, the present war in Iraq, the next war in Iran, the ever-widening national obesity crisis, and the bizarre possibilities of Hillary or Obama, may I say how inspiring it is to see that there are still enough of you left in the travel industry to fill the room. Hooray! And not only left in the industry, but looking onward and upward to the future. For example, I am delighted to know that you have been discussing tourism and climate change, and whether there is a buck in it. Well, there most certainly is. This is because the experts who predicted the thrilling, looming climate change disaster have kept the excitement going by confusing global warming with climate change and confusing both of them with the weather. This means that everyone in the world is now paying keen and fearful attention to the weather. Everything from the sun coming up and the tide coming in, from rain on the weekend to a light offshore breezes, is a symptom of terrifying climate change. And it gives everybody a little bit of a fright and a thrill. And this is fantastic news for Australian tourism, because what Australia has got more of than anywhere in the world, more than sheep or minerals or radiant movie stars, is weather. We have got weather up to our Watusis. And not just any old weather, but big weather. Australia has droughts and flooding rains. You may have heard of them. And we have bushfires and pitiless desert sandstorms and sudden snow blizzards and dangerous rips in the surf, and we've even got a disappearing inland sea. Even better, Australia has a unique and fragile ecosystem entirely made up of things that bite you, stick you, sting you, kick you in the nuts, or strangle you in your sleeping bags. If climate change makes the earth get hotter, this venomous and vicious ecosystem will explode into plague proportions and take over the world. And if climate change means another ice age, because with climate change you have to have a bob each way, these beasties will mutate into huge, scaly things with tusks as well as lethal stingers and come looking for us. Yes, Australia is the world's climate change PlayStation, a sort of natural catastrophe theme park. You know, in the past, the psychotic Australian climate has been something of a deterrent to tourists due to the chance of lingering death in the desert and sudden death in the tropics and holiday inns disappearing into the sand drifts between, say, Kalgoorlie and Darwin. But thanks to the new global enthusiasm for climate change and sudden destruction and extreme weather, the Australian climate will be the next big attraction. Come to Australia. See the future. If you want to know what Glasgow will look like by 2020, come to far north Queensland. No more cockles and winkles, but plenty of stingers and crocs. The worst that can happen in Oslo is a pigeon pooping on your hat. Come to Darwin and the mozzies will do the same. Why bother whitewater rafting down the rapids to a charming Colorado chalet? Come to northern New South Wales for a fair income flash flood. And go brown water rafting on the roof of your chalet. With a cow for company and plenty of snakes. Forget about bushwalking in the Ardennes with a quaint rural inn every 10 kilometres. Get dropped in the bush in the Grampians in the dry season and wait for a moron with a box of matches to come up with a bright idea. Tell our foreign friends that we will supply the wet sacks and the gumboots, and we will notify their relatives if the wind changes suddenly. You know, when Hollywood made On the Beach in Melbourne, Ava Gardner said it was a perfect place to imagine the end of the world. That's not true of Melbourne anymore. Anywhere in Australia can scare tourists stiff if they are true climate change enthusiasts. All we have to do is to make it look really convincing is to train the locals to look surprised when the river comes up through the window. Or the treetops burst into flames, and never tell our guests that it's been going on for tens of thousands of years. This initiative will be globally responsible too, because our terrified guests will hurry home with their I Survived Australia hats on, and they will put their Fiats and Porsches up on blocks, and they will take cold showers, and they will plant trees until they get fungus fingers. Anything rather than have Naples turn into Narrabri or Beijing into Burke. And there could even be special attractions for true green fanatics, such as our unrivaled open-cut mines in Western Australia. We can take earnest green tour groups there and explain that since Australia is largely composed of killer coal and unacceptable uranium, we have decided to dig it all up and ship it overseas to secret destinations. No, don't thank us, it's our global duty. And don't worry about enough tourists turning up. If the really scary climate changes are right, we'll get around 400 million tourists in the first 6 months after the ice cap goes. Or the rivers dry up. And with any luck, all the penguins and polar bears will have scrambled ashore first, so the tourists will have something to see. And now an even bolder idea of your conference has been health tourism, correct? Yes. If I may take, oh no, I won't take, but it may take a giant leap of imagination to get tourists to come and experience the New South Wales health system. It could. Or possibly just barefaced lies. What would be on the poster? Perhaps the waving fields of golden staff. When you hear someone shout, "Where the bloody hell are you?" in New South Wales hospitals, they mean the doctors. You know, there are people overseas on their local death row who would rather stay there than transfer to a Sydney hospital. On the other hand, I suppose health tourism could involve tours of the ruins, like some ancient Aztec civilization. And how delightful to learn in the conference that the tourism industries are already booming so defiantly that your chief concern is finding enough young people to work in it. Well, actually, the shortage of 17 to 19-year-olds is something of a myth. They're all around at my place, in my daughter's bedroom. They're on MSM and MySpace. They're like cave dwellers huddled round the new invention of fire. Although it is true that they are presently unavailable to join the workforce or even pick up wet towels. The only heavy lifting teenagers do is downloading. Until they emerge, the answer to your employment problems may be to seize upon the availability of Australia's legendary ageing population. Yes, of course. At 60, of course, all Australians may now retire on lavish superannuation schemes provided by the much misunderstood Mr. Costello. This is delightful, of course, but what with 60 being the new 40 and so on, these well-heeled retirees face a further 50 years of vigorous youth, with nothing to do except unretire and rejoin the workforce. Well, snap them up, especially the women. Look at what they bring to your range of services. Shopping? These women have been shopping for 50 years. Squeezing fruit, fingering fabrics, sniffing chickens, counting the change. There is nothing they don't know about shoplifting. From personal experience, they would be human security cameras. They'd also be full of advice for customers on what's bad for you, on the decline of Mulgawood souvenir ashtrays, on the quality of modern bacon, and on which beach robe makes you look like a floral caravan from the back. And as you know, all tourists need help in the pharmacy. By 60 or 70, these pharmaceutical junkies have written a book. If they haven't popped it, inserted it, rubbed it on their skin, removed hair with it, or soaked their dentures in it, then it isn't in the shop. Hairdressing, these women have spent 40 years teasing up. They have travelled all the way from blonde-tipped swingers to mauve hydrangeas. They can quote decades of new idea from memory. And, blessed relief, they won't care what you're doing on the weekend, as long as you take a jumper. Hospitality? A 17-year-old doesn't cook, shop, wash up, or even eat food without icing or batter on it. Staff your favourite restaurant with a retired mum or a serving grandma, and you'd better be there when your food's on the table. And you'll eat what's good for you, or there'll be no dessert, and you'll learn some table manners. And Australian tourism would be revolutionised by tour guides herding crocodiles of foreign tourists around Australia's wonders, explaining how much better they used to be before all the tourists got there. Tourism and travel, it's people. It is a real service, a true service industry. And successful service industries will always offer something that other sectors of the economy increasingly do not, and that is humanity. Because whichever service you offer, its success depends on human contact. And you know that we civilians, what we really appreciate in times of anxiety or global tension or even shopping is a friendly face. All the banks and financial institutions and bureaucracies which we must deal with are simply not people anymore. They are telephone numbers. With the telephone numbers with a call centre in Diego Garcia or Guatemala or New Delhi. Call centres which invite you to press 1 for puzzled, and press 2 for annoyed, and press 3 for enraged, and press 4 to fuck off. Or you are invited to visit their website, which invites you to press 1. But you know that we customers hunger to meet someone else face to face, just as we do our dentists and occasionally our children. And if we ring in, we prefer voice-to-ear contact, preferably with someone actually in the business we are calling and actually in the same country, on the same planet. And preferably someone who knows what they are doing and what we want. This is the essential ingredient for successful business: skilled, well-trained staff. And I only wish that skills training had been available when I first launched myself upon the tourism workforce. Now, I readily concede that there are some professions in which people with no training, no skills and no experience, people who haven't got a clue what's going on, can still do very well for themselves. Politicians, journalists, the wallabies. But real employers know that people with no training subtracts immediately from the bottom line. Now, it's like having a permanent temp on the switch, and I know because I was once that temp. My first job was in a chemist shop in Sorrento. Now, Sorrento is a tourist destination in Victoria, and during the holidays, all the local kids got jobs. Well, I was 14. I was given a white uniform and shown how to lean on the counter. And no training. One day, a happy holidaying man walked into the shop. He was really old, about 40. And he hovered around the counter, and I said, "May I help you?" And he hesitated, and his eyes scanned the shop, and he said, I'll have a comb, thank you. And his eyes are lighting on a stand of combs, so I sold him the comb. And he left. About half an hour later came back, and I said, "Can I help you?" And he looked around the shop, and there was no one else there to serve him but me. And I was standing there in my little white uniform with my pert young body thrusting through the flimsy fabric of my frock. I'm just trying to see things from the customer's point of view here. And he said, "Yes, thank you." He took a deep breath and he said, "Yes, thank you. I'd like some Gossamer, please." Now, I didn't know that Gossamer was a contraceptive, a brand of condom. I only knew Gossamer as a hairspray. And so I said, "Certainly, sir. What do you want? Normal or hard to hold?" It's true. He left the shop. I lost a customer. My boss's bottom line was as red as the customer's face. And the customer's chances of enhancing someone else's bottom line were severely diminished. The chances of him coming back to Sorrento diminished too. Later on, after relating this story to one of the other girls working in the shop, I found out what Gossamer were. And I found out where they were kept. They were kept in the bottom drawer behind the counter. And I found out that there were 3 sizes. The girls told me that you always had to ask the customers whether they wanted small, medium, or large. And you had to ask them really loudly, in case they were deaf. I didn't get trained, I got set up. To save his business, the chemist encouraged me to seek employment somewhere else. A great shame, really, because Sorrento could now have a tourist reputation as a great place to score. So, next tourist season, I was a waitress. Another pert uniform, another junior wage, still no training. I tried to serve coq au vin by squeezing through the tables, and that's when I heard all this screaming, "Stop, stop, stop, ah, ah, ah," and I thought, aren't they having fun? And then I turned around and I found that I was dripping hot coq au vin all over this man's bald head. And it was sunburnt, and every time he wiped, I was dripping it more. And I got such a fright, I turned around like this, and the coq au vin on this plate slipped off the plate, and hit his wife right between the shoulder blades. And she had a halter neck dress on, and it slid right down her back. Not only were these valued clients burnt and their clothes buggered, but there was no more coq au vin. With training, I would not have burst into tears. I would have blamed the customer. Or I would have pretended nothing happened. Can I get you something else? Or I would have given the bald guy, grabbed the bald guy and given him the Heimlich maneuver until he passed out. Because customers, as you know, value staff who are trained to look as if they know what they're doing. The guy who owned the restaurant suggested that I work somewhere else. And for years, which is a shame for him, because it took years for Sorrento to get a reputation for fine dining after that. Now, I only ever really learned about service as a customer. And what I know is that if you are holidaying anywhere in the world and you walk into a business and someone says, I don't know, or how do you spell that, or get it yourself in whatever language, it's probably wise to walk right out, especially if it's a hospital or a bank. In short, training costs money, but not as much as not training does. You might like to recall the first training lesson as devised by Noel Coward. The customer's always right. The customer's always right. The son of a bitch is probably rich, so smile with all your might. I just want to say, I hope you're taking notes, by the way, because one of the great things about, I'm going to skip a little bit here because I know you're dying to have a drink, aren't you? Yeah. So as this conference shows, all the challenges facing the tourism industry can be met and are being met, except perhaps one. See, whatever it is that our foreign guests want to see in Australia, whatever mountains and rivers and difficult taxi drivers they conquer to get to it, eventually they are going to want to sit and drink and look at it. But there is a problem, because try relaxing with a bottle of Australian wine nowadays. It's become harder. And why? It's because of something written on the back label of the bottle. And it's not the list of ingredients. After all, these aren't like the industrial strength chemicals they put into cask wine. Chemicals which also prevent rust and which read headache 200 and nausea 320. No. The major irritant on the back label of the bottle is that sniffy, priggish little motto which reads, enjoy wine in moderation. Well, get stuffed! There are health warnings on everything, from cigarette packets to bicycle seats. The country is full of anti-discrimination nudges telling us what to think, and 99 separate health bodies telling us to eat our greens, and bearded loons carping the street about climate change. And the whole country is infested with wowsers the way we used to get rabbits, and the least the bastards can do is stay out of my glass when I'm drinking to forget them. Thank you. I will not enjoy wine in moderation unless I bloody well feel like it. I will enjoy a 4-bottle lunch with the best girlfriend if the mood takes me. And because I'm an adult, after 4 bottles between us, I'll give her my car keys and say, here, I'll pick a nice red and you pick a nice bust. And if I get nagged by drunken remorse over a last bottle at 3 in the morning, I don't want to be nagged by the bottle as well. You know, most of us drink wine when a well-meaning parent gives us a small glass of wine at the table mixed with water. And that's the last time we enjoy wine in moderation for about 15 years. 15 years that span the teens and the 20s. Years of casks in cars or flagons in panel vans for the mature age drinkers. Losing your lunch and your virginity on Benin. Not necessarily in that order. Stone's green ginger wine. Oh. You know, if the Vikings had drunk Stone's green ginger wine instead of mead, England today would be a ruined, piss-stained dump. Oh, maybe they did. What would be on the back label of Stone's Green Ginger Wine? Please chuck dim sims in Dad's station wagon in moderation. Please rip the trousers off the thrash band in moderation. I don't think so. Wine. It's better than sex. You know, wine has all the pleasures of sex without the risks. If your wine is picked from the wrong side of the hill, you only need Disprin, not penicillin. Wine has as many positions as sex. Missionary position, wafers, goblet, little towel for dribbles. Back door, hot afternoon, cold glass of wine, sitting on the stoop. On top, elbows on the table, mumbled conversation, a straw. Underneath, head on a pillow, on the floor, barrel with the spigot just above the mouth. You don't have to consider the feelings of wine. You don't always have to worry whether it can breathe. You can even make it cook. Wine improves food. Sex doesn't go with cheese. Sex leads to children. More sex leads to more children. More children leads to less sleep. More wine leads to more sleep. You know, therapists tell us that the best sex aid, apart from a partner, is our imaginations. Imagine sex and you're likely to call out Kevin or Mr. Ed in the wrong bedroom. But imagine a bottle of wine. I see bronzed and muscled bodies shining with sweat in the warm morning sun. Lean limbs bent double. Long fingers, lithe and firm and sure, caress dew-spangled golden orbs, swollen, translucent, ready to burst. The heavy bunches dangle between the fingers, and are gently plucked from the vine and laid in glistening mounds, then hitch the skirt and hoist the culottes and dance upon their ripe, firm flesh until their essence runs dribbling, body warm between the toes and out the bung, dripping drop by golden drop or blood-red nectar. Such a dance, such a sensation. It ought to be bottled. And unlike sex, you can cork it halfway through. Happily, you won't have to. So, here's to wine. The Romans used to shout, in vino veritas, in wine there is truth. Although legless, they could shout it in Latin, the clever buggers. And here's to you. Please boldly explore the new frontiers of the travel industry and tourism with a bottle and a map and a smile. And remember the wise words of Susan Heller, who said, when you travel, lay out all your clothes and all your money, then take half your clothes and twice the money. Or the even wiser words of Jerry Seinfeld, the road less traveled is often less traveled for a very good reason. Have a great night, have a great drink, which you've been doing lots of. Thank you.